world of prosthetics is developing quicker by the year. Doctors, engineers, and students are all striving to design more effective artificial limbs that can help amputees and sufferers of paralysis live not only more comfortably, but also to thrive. Today, we're looking at the top 5 bionic prosthetics that look like they're from the future. Open Bionics Hero Arm. The Hero Arm by startup company Open Bionics is the world's first medically approved 3D printed bionic arm. This prosthetic of the future is controlled by the user's own muscles, giving them an unrivaled lifelike sensation. The technology works through a number of sensors housed within the bionic arm's socket. The highly sensitive sensors detect muscle movements and trigger the hand to respond automatically. The bionic hand and fingers of the prosthetic are controlled using the same muscles as a biological hand, so learning how to use the device is incredibly straightforward, which is very important for any amputee rehabilitation process. Each Hero Arm is entirely bespoke. The user's arms are scanned to create a perfect 3D printed socket, providing a comfortable fit that also increases usability. The Hero Arm comes in 3 different hand sizes and 2 different arm lengths, making them suitable for all ages and sizes. Intended for everyday use, the Hero not only gives users the ability to hold objects such as food, tools, utensils, and pens, but also allows them to get dressed easily, open doors, and even type on a keyboard, all essential for boosting independence. It should be noted that the manufacturer advises against using the bionic arm in potentially high-risk situations in case it fails or the battery dies. This includes driving, any form of contact or extreme sport, and also using a firearm. The Hero Arm has some amazing features and tons of personalization options, but those aren't the only reasons why it's set to become the future of prosthetics. The Hero Arm starts at just $3,000, which might sound like a lot of money. However, comparative prosthetic arms with similar features can often cost skyward as $50,000 and even as high as $100,000. Open Bionics can also fit, print, and deliver a tailor-made arm in around 40 hours, far quicker than any other company. University of Utah's Bionic Leg. When thinking about prosthetic legs, you might picture a pair of running blades or a metal pole attached to a trainer. But times are changing and prosthetics are evolving. The University of Utah's bionic research team is at the forefront of prosthetic development, and their latest bionic leg is, by far, their most advanced to date. Technology that allows users to control their prosthetics with exaggerated body movements have been around for quite some time, and even mind-controlled devices are starting to crop up. But the University of Utah is taking a completely different approach. What if prosthetics could think for themselves? Robotic and AI technology are moving at an alarming rate, so why not implement that technology into amputee prosthetics as well? Dr. Lenzi, who leads the team, set out to make 2 major fundamental changes. First, to create a powered prosthetic that is lighter and stronger than a biological human leg, and second, to develop a leg that can think for itself and knows how to move naturally in any given situation. The results are staggering, and users are astonished by how different this new prosthetic operates compared to anything else currently available. Dr. Lenzi's theory is that AI-powered prosthetics feel more effortless than those controlled consciously, making them far easier to adapt to. The bionic leg allows users to move around more naturally when doing everyday tasks, like stairs, stepping up a curb, even standing up in a chair. And this is just the start. Although Dr. Lenzi's bionic leg is still in the early stages, the development of the technology is still promising. Being lighter and more powerful than a biological leg means that this robotic limb could provide users with abilities not available to regular able-bodied people. Robotic prosthetics such as these could turn those previously considered to be disabled people into amplified bionic humans. Mr. Burkhart's brain injury. Meet Ian Burkhart, a quadriplegic that after a freak accident became paralyzed from the shoulders down. 5 years after his injury, now aged 24, Ian Burkhart has regained control over his right hand and fingers thanks to a new technology that can transmit thoughts directly to his muscles, bypassing his spinal injury entirely. By implanting a small chip into his brain and connecting him to a computer, Ian was able to learn simple movements through multiple sessions of thought repetition. By focusing his thoughts and through doctor analysis, Ian was eventually able to do tasks such as pour water from a bottle, pick up a straw, and even play guitar. Getting to this level of movement took over a year of continual learning and countless sessions, but progress is now speeding up. The system works somewhat like AI, except Ian's brain is doing the teaching. When Ian thinks a thought, such as opening his hand, neurons fire that command off in his head. But because of the spinal injury, the signals can't make it down to his hands to perform the movement. The implanted chip picks up on these neurons and sends the information to the computer. Through repetition and visual learning, the computer learns that certain thought patterns mean specific things, such as opening and closing Ian's hand. Once the computer understands Ian's messages, it can send the commands to another device attached to his hand, triggering the hand muscle While this technology is not exactly a bionic prosthetic, it does allow paraplegics to regain control over their previously dormant limbs. As it stands, the technology is only capable of very simple movements. But in the years to come, people such as Ian may be able to regain control over their entire arms and legs, and may even be able to walk again. Osseo's mind-control bionic prosthetics. While there are a small number of companies developing mind-control bionic prosthetics, Osseo, the global leader in non-invasive orthopedics, was the very first. Back in 2015, Osseo provided 2 amputees with the first prosthetic legs that could be controlled with thought alone, and their technology has been getting smarter ever since. Bionic prosthetics typically require a certain level of conscious impulse or intentional thought by the user. However, Osseo's smart limbs are capable of doing all the thinking themselves. Through real-time learning, the smart bionic legs can adjust to their user's walking style, speed, and terrain, making for a natural and intuitive user experience. The technology works by picking up on natural movement signals and replicating how the body translates electrical impulses into specific muscle movements. Electronic impulses from the brain are received by sensors embedded in the existing muscle tissue, which then translates said signals into the appropriate bionic limb movement. The process is instantaneous, resulting in seamless and perfect physical movement of the prosthetic and user. Through the use of Osseo's technology, users no longer need to adjust their equipment on the go, or put up with the chronic injuries associated with traditional prosthetics that are unable to adapt. Biodapt performance prosthetics. Okay, this prosthetic might not be robotic, mind-controlled, or work with AI, but it was still far too innovative to leave out of today's video. Biodapt designs and manufactures high-performance, lower limb prosthetics for action sports and similar activities. Biodapt's goal is to not only get amputees moving again, but also to have them moving freely and enjoying life to the fullest without limitations. Their amazing prosthetics can be and are used by many elite athletes competing at the highest level, as well as people who simply want a quality limb solution that allows them to enjoy a range of activities. Professional snowmobile racer Mike Schultz started the company after losing his leg above the knee in an accident back in 2008. After recovery and rehabilitation, he quickly found out that there were no prosthetics available on the market that allowed him to ride and race as he did pre-amputation, so he decided to build one himself. With a wealth of fabrication knowledge, suspension tuning experience, and unwillingness to compromise, Mike created the first prototype version of Biodapt's commercially available prosthetic. Named the Moto Knee, this prosthetic looks like a motorcycle part in its own right, with fully adjustable shocks, air springs, and a unique linkage system. The device gives users a uniquely natural and dynamic feeling that is difficult to replicate. Biodapt also offers a foot and ankle prosthetic that can be used in partnership with the Moto Knee. Mike has gone on to win multiple ESPN X Games medals while using his prosthetic leg, and a number of other athletes have also followed in his gold-winning prosthetic footsteps. Less than 30 years ago, advanced robots were nothing but a hopeful dream and futuristic vision. Fast forward to today, and thanks to the ever-increasing advancements in science and technology, these visions are genuine realities. Today, we're looking at real-life robots that will make you think that the future is now. Sophia. Sophia is a social, humanoid robot whose design centers around artificial intelligence. Created by Hanson Robotics Company in Hong Kong, Sophia was activated on February 14, 2016 for the very first time. She made her first public appearance a month later at South by Southwest Festival in Austin, Texas, United States. Sophia can function in many ways by using artificial intelligence, visual data processing, and facial recognition. Having cameras in her eyes allows this humanoid to follow faces, keep eye contact, as well as recognize individuals. Sophia can also process speech and hold a conversation with the scripted replies that have been programmed within her. Sophia is capable of more than 60 facial expressions that make her look incredibly real. She also has a sense of humor and can express genuine feelings. To make her more human-like, Sophia was upgraded with functional legs in 2018. So now, not only does she stand just shy of 6 foot, but she can move around at a top speed of 0.6 miles per hour. Sophia has been designed for the purpose of education, research, and entertainment. She also helps promote public discussions regarding artificial intelligence ethics and the future of robotics amidst human society. Sophia has shown off her drawing abilities by drawing a portrait of the Prime Minister of Malaysia and a portrait of the blonde bombshell Holly Willoughby. On October 25, 2017, Sophia was granted full citizenship of Saudi Arabia. the first ever robot to be able to achieve this status. The United Nations also presented Sophia with the title Innovation Champion. Sophia is indeed a revolutionary robot, to say the least, and there's a possibility of many more upgrades to follow. She certainly is an AI bot to keep your eye on. Robocop. Remember the film Robocop? Well, Robo isn't just a fictional character anymore. This cyborg is real. HAL Robotics developed this one-of-a-kind robot cop for the Dubai police force in May 2017, and it has been enjoying its full-time role ever since. The RoboCop is a life-sized robot that independently patrols Dubai's city malls and tourist attractions, keeping the streets safe and sound for people to enjoy. People can report crime, get information, and pay fines by simply using the touchscreen display on Robo's torso. And if you find you're not satisfied with the tech bot, then you can reach an actual human by pressing its SOS button. RoboCop is even able to identify wanted criminals and collect evidence, making it a real asset to the police department, not just a fun gimmick. Being multilingual means that it is capable of speaking many languages from all around the world, including Arabic, English, and Mandarin, which is really important in such an internationally visited city. RoboCop has been so successful in helping the citizens and police of Dubai that the local government is aiming to increase the size of its police force by 25% in the form of robots by the year 2030. Kuri. Kuri is a tiny home robot that is only 20 inches tall and 14 pounds in weight that's been designed by a United States-based company, Mayfield Robotics. Kuri can smartly roll around the house, avoiding obstacles by using integrated lasers to navigate and map its way around your home. Designed to specifically interact with humans, Kuri is the perfect addition to any house and acts almost like a little robotic companion. This adorable bot roams around in your house just waiting to be interacted with. Kuri responds to your voice, recognizes faces, plays music for you, and even captures photos and videos of your memorable moments. Not only is Kuri a cute companion, but this bot also does the work of a security guard by detecting intruders with its rotating security camera. Unlike most robots, Kuri has a genuine personality and isn't shy about this either. Using a bright LED, Kuri will display how she's feeling, letting everybody know if she's feeling angry, sad, or lovable. Kuri is a super high-tech companion robot that could easily become your new best friend. Toyota THR3. The Toyota THR3 is a third-generation humanoid robot by Toyota that works by mimicking the maneuvers of its human operator. To control the robot, the operator is partnered up with a wearable controller that sends movement data to the THR3. This means that any movement the operator makes, the robot will make too. The THR3 has 29 body parts, which includes 10 fingers and 16 master control systems, which enables its movements to be natural and smooth. The incredible human-like movements is what makes this robot so special and also so naturally useful. The Toyota THR3 is currently being used within homes to help with mundane tasks, in construction sites for moving heavy materials, and even in disaster-stricken areas to clear rubble and debris. Standing at 5 feet 1 inch and weighing 75 kilograms, the THR3 is a friendly-sized robot that has been designed to be as unthreatening as possible. Although the robotics team at Toyota has developed fantastic robots in the past, the THR3 is by far their most intelligent. Asimo. Asimo holds the title for being the most socially advanced robot in the world to date. It's a humanoid robot that has gone through many stages of development since its creation way back in the year 2000. Asimo stands 4 foot 3 inches tall and is loaded with useful talents. It has the ability to recognize moving objects, carry out various gestures, understand sounds and words, and fully acknowledge its surroundings. Due to the presence of several sensors in its body, Asimo is capable of carrying out actions and lifelike movements that most humanoids can't, such as running, following you, and turning to face you when approached from behind. Asimo responds to its name when called, and can even recognize when a handshake is offered or when it's being waved to. Asimo will respond to you by nodding or speaking in an array of languages, depending on what language you decide to greet it. Asimo's movements are controlled by a computer placed in the torso area, and can be controlled by either a PC, wireless controller, or by simple voice. As it stands, the battery life is only 1 hour, but this is due to be improved as mainstream use increases. Asimo is 20 years old, making it one of the oldest cyborgs out there. Its current configuration is almost unrecognizable from the original edition, so one can only wonder what it will look like in another couple of decades. reduce, reuse, recycle. These are the three words that are repeated day in, day out around the world. They're applicable to every single industry, from food to fashion. But what options do we have available to tackle our consumption habits? These are the top 10 inventions that are saving our planet in their own unique way. The Sea-Bin project is a localized effort set up in Australia which, in its infancy, raised over $250,000 by crowdfunding alone. It aims to tackle the plastic pollution problem one marina at a time. Every single Sea-Bin is capable of collecting 90,000 plastic bags per year. That's the same as 35,700 disposable cups, 16,500 plastic bottles, or 166,500 pieces of plastic cutlery. Globally, the initiative has 860 Sea-Bins in place in at least 50 countries, which collectively capture more than 3.5 tons of waste daily. So far, almost 1.5 million tons of waste have been caught. From a simple floating bin, the foundation has continued to develop, and its product now features oil-absorbent pads designed to soak up petroleum-based surface oils too. A water pump displaces the water inside the bin, creating a vacuum effect around its rim. This in turn pulls water, and with it waste, from up to 10 meters away, filtering 25,000 liters each hour. The company's mission is clear: to create a world in which Sea-Bins are not needed. The fight to remove plastics is taking place across the world, on land and now in water, but to remove them from the chain entirely is the next big step. Many companies have various offerings, but one sustainable method is the use of bioplastics. Rather than relying on petroleum-based resources, bioplastics are made from sugar derivatives. This means things like starch and cellulose. The most common is polylactic acid, or PLA, which comes from fermented corn. The production of these new kinds of plastic emit around a third as much greenhouse gases as conventional plastic manufacturing processes, and the finished product contains no toxins. This means that cornstarch plastics can be composted, and with the price of petroleum on the up and more work being done to mainstream starch-based plastics, the prices are almost comparable. Be sure not to mix these into your recycling bin, though, as this will contaminate the recycling stream and can do more harm than good. It's also worth noting that these materials currently require specialized composting and are not suitable for home composting. The best way to tell is to look for the number 7 on the base of your cup, followed by the letters PLA. Next up is NotPla. April 2017 saw the company raise £850,000 in a crowdfunding activity backed by over 900 investors. Today, the initiative is making some of the most environmentally friendly plastic packaging alternatives on the market. Made primarily from brown seaweed, which they say grows up to 1 meter every single day, it is entirely compostable. One of the key benefits is that it biodegrades in a little over a month, so it doesn't need to go to a special composting facility like PLA. Depending on its use, consumers are even free to eat it, just as is the case with its UHO capsules. The company pioneered these at the London Marathon, where it kept runners hydrated entirely waste-free. Other examples of their capsules include cocktails, perfect for exclusive evening events, and sauce sachets for takeaway and delivery services. The NotPla liner coats cardboard serving boxes in a hydrophobic and oleophobic layer to keep food fresh, and to help the compostability or recyclability of the packaging after use. No matter what its intended use, most plastic finds its way into the watercourse, which ends up in the oceans. Although aluminium is better for the environment than plastic, beer cans are held together with one of the most dangerous plastics that threaten our sea life. Six-pack rings have been pictured suffocating sea creatures, and have even been found in the stomachs of large sea mammals. Florida-based Saltwater Brewery thought it was time to change this, and combined barley with wheat ribbon, a byproduct of the brewing process, to create 100% biodegradable and edible six-pack rings. Furthermore, in a matter of just hours after finding its way into the sea, this packaging will begin to break down by itself. Saltwater Brewery aims to produce almost 500,000 of these each month, and hopes that more established companies will follow its example. But in the meantime, and while plastic still plagues our world, remember to cut open any six-pack rings you may be throwing away, so that, if they do unfortunately end up in the oceans, at least they don't pose a choking hazard to any wildlife. Yet again, another brewery is at the forefront of planet-saving technologies. New Zealand-based DB Breweries has installed bottle crushers that break down its glass bottles into very fine powder. Each bottle creates 200 grams of powder, which itself is a form of sand substitute. Up to 9 in 10 beaches are eroding due to the construction industry's greed for the ocean's sands. But the Kiwi firm hopes to change this with its glass sand alternative. Taking bottles out of landfill, the company will sell its powdery substance to construction firms, which will use it in the making of things like cement and brickwork, and even some road surfaces. The bottle's label is automatically removed using a suction system before minutes metal hammers break away at the glass, a process that takes a staggering 5 seconds. Particles will measure 0.4 to 1.1 millimeters and will be screened and filtered by size for different uses. It's said that the US alone discards 40 billion pieces of plastic cutlery each year. That's more than 120 pieces per person. Indian cutlery company Bakis has broken the trend and thinks it has found the solution to our plastic habits. These vegan forks, knives and spoons are consumable and are primarily manufactured from sorghum, which is what is known as an ancient grain. Blended with rice and wheat, this new cutlery trend comes in 3 flavors: plain, sweet and savory, a mix of salt and cumin. Sorghum is a particularly good choice of grain because it remains hard when it encounters liquid, making it perfect for soups and sauces, and it can be grown in areas that receive little rainfall. Various crowdfunding campaigns have seen it raise tens of thousands of dollars, allowing the company to sell spoons for about 2 rupees, twice the price of plastic spoons, but half the price of wooden spoons. Decomposition begins naturally in just a few days if the cutlery isn't eaten. It's not just the packaging that contains our food, but our food itself. Much of the food we find in our supermarkets has been imported, carrying with it huge air miles. Supporting local farmers is one way, but for many city dwellers, this simply isn't an option. To grow our own produce would be amazing, but with the price per square foot at an all-time high, it's difficult to know where to start. Many small crops can be grown at home on what's known as a vertical garden. A concept that first started as a wall of pots has become a whole industry. Aiming to reconnect us with the growing process, Terra Planta is a plant pot reimagined. A vertical body of water is contained within a honeycomb clay design which allows roots to grasp on. Thanks to its porous nature, water seeps through to feed the plant's growth, while many species are suitable to be grown from seed, including microgreens. These are expected to retail for $80, but are currently available on crowdfunding platforms for significant discounts. Singapore Food Agency created history when, this year, it gave approval to lab-grown meat. Also known as cultured meat, the aim is to reduce not only the amount of livestock killed for meat, but also provide a drug-free industry. Currently, estimates place 60% of the world's mammals by weight as livestock for slaughter, while 36% are humans. Only 4% of the world's mammals are classed as wild animals. A 1,200-litre bioreactor houses the cells which are combined with plant-based ingredients to form a meat hybrid. Future challenges involve passing various regulatory stages across the world before rolling out lab-grown meat on a consumable scale. One report predicts that in just 2 decades, the majority of the meat we eat will in fact not come from dead animals, but from laboratories or plant-based alternatives. With 1 in 7 people currently making a living in the livestock industry, this could have a huge impact economically. But one question remains. Will lab-grown meat be classed as vegetarian or even vegan? Currently this is unlikely, because cells are being taken from live animals to begin the process. We've dealt with the food side of things, but before a greasy kebab or some French fries or a pizza comes a good night out. Cities are homes to thousands of nightclubs, in which hundreds of people can be found enjoying themselves. Or at least this was the case prior to the pandemic. But what if all this wasted energy could be put to good use? Dance to Save the World lights up the dance floor at London's Surya nightclub. Quartz crystals and ceramics form the basis of this high-tech dance floor, which turns kinetic energy into electricity. Enough, in fact, to power almost 2/3 of the club's requirements, making it well on the way to being carbon net zero. The club also has its own wind turbine and solar system, while entry to the club is an appealing £10, which is reduced to zero for people who sign a pledge to reduce their energy consumption. Drinks are served in polycarbon cups, while minimal water is used. A night out is not complete without the latest fashion accessories. The idea came about when leather was observed to be environmentally unsustainable and often poor quality in the Philippines. And years later, a joint venture between the Royal College of Art in London and a university in North Wales resulted in the creation of pinion nets. The long fibres from pineapple leaves come together with polylactic acid and petroleum-based resins to create an artificial leather that is softer and more pliable than other alternatives. Currently, the material is not biodegradable due to its plastic components, but it's a huge leap forward from the traditional use of cowhide and a sign of what's to come. Almost 500 pineapple leaves are required for just 1 square metre of the fabric. But with the pineapple industry wasting 40,000 tonnes of leaves each year, it means rotting them or burning them isn't the only option. Wherever possible, reduce, reuse and recycle. But in looking for something new, why not give one of these planet-saving initiatives a try? 10 most amazing machines. Machines are built to do essential tasks better, faster and more efficiently than man ever did. From the small to the giant, the mundane to the extraordinary. In today's video, we're looking at 10 of the world's most amazing machines. Bell's Machining 8000 Wood Processor. Bell's Machining is one of the world's leading manufacturers of wood processing equipment. Their 8000 firewood plant is their biggest and most capable machine, able to cut, wedge, tumble and conveyor 4+ full cords of hardwood per hour. The machine is powered by a 121 horsepower cap turbo diesel Tier 4 engine, features a 60-inch Simmons circular saw and a 7-inch 56-ton splitter cylinder. The 8000 series can process logs up to 30 feet in length and 26.5 inches in diameter. Bell's Machining pride themselves on making the heaviest, most rugged wood processors in the industry. The 8000, with its tandem 9,000-pound axles, 85-gallon hydraulic tank, and large operating cab with aircon and heating, certainly lives up to the brand's sturdy reputation. VZ950 Titan Universal Shredder. The VZ950 Titan is a behemoth of a shredder that can tooth its way through almost anything, including car bodies, scrap, waste, wood, minerals, and much more. The VZ950 is fitted with a standard track system that allows it to be rigged up to a regular truck hitch for easy transportation in, around, and between sites. The machine features a quick change system for the tool shaft, better known as the shredding mechanism, allowing for easy installation and removal of the shaft pair within the shortest time possible. This also facilitates more efficient maintenance, preparation, and changing of the shaft pair for seamless operation out in the field. When shredding tough materials, such as metal, the shredder implements its automatically pressure-controlled damping system, which adjusts the shredding size to facilitate any increased resistance it may encounter. This system prevents damage to the tool shafts and minimizes the need for constant manual adjustment. Lexion Combine 8900. The combine harvester is an incredibly important piece of machinery in the agriculture industry, and nobody does it better than Claas, makers of the world-famous Lexion series. The flagship Lexion 8900 is the firm's biggest, most powerful combine to date, running off of a Stage 5 compliant 16.2-litre MAN D26 engine that can kick out 790 horsepower, which is around 90 horsepower more than its nearest rival, the New Holland CR 1090. This latest model is a notable improvement over its already amazing predecessors. The 600mm diameter threshing drum with 8 rasp bars has been replaced by a 26% larger 755mm version with 10 bars, which greatly improves threshing performance. Claas has overhauled the rotor system, adding an additional rotor from 3 to 4, and opted for a shallower operating angle to ease crop flow and to reduce straw damage. This increased performance has facilitated the need for a larger tank, so the 8900 can be spec'd with a gigantic 18,000-litre hold. Operators can also rest easy, as the cab has had a series refurb, now offering a far bigger workspace and a larger inspection window, giving better visibility into the grain tank. The rotary and push controls have also been replaced with touchscreen displays, bringing the Lexion Combine 8900 right into the current decade. Frinoff Forest Mulcher M650M. The M650M is a heavy-duty mulcher that is capable of clearing and preparing land in record time. Built to make easy work of left-behind tree stumps, this forest mulcher can shred through logs with using a 25.6-inch rotor. As a multi-purpose, this offering from Frinoff has a range of applications, including clearing paths for forestry, recultivating land for agriculture, as well as cleaning up the left-behinds of selective felling. Suitable for carrier vehicles 200 to 350 horsepower, the M650M needs to be partnered up with an equally high-performance companion to work at full capacity. This is understandable, seeing as this serious piece of engineering weighs just shy of 7,000 pounds. The M650M is made out of highly wear-resistant steel, which might be heavy, but it also reduces maintenance and the frequency of failures significantly. Speytruck TMF. The Speytruck TMF is a powerful log stacker that predominantly operates within the sawmill, paper mill, and pulp industries. The Speytruck TMF is available in 5 different size variants, with the smallest being able to grapple between 9 and 12 tons of logs, and the largest being able to handle between 22 and 32 tons. Each Speytruck TMF is built using well-known quality components that are backed with many years of experience and vast know-how by the manufacturer. The result is an incredibly heavy-duty, highly reliable machine that is perfect, fast, safe, and cost-effective log handling. The cockpit of the TMF offers a comfortable and straightforward environment for the operator. All controls are industry standard, so they should be familiar to the majority of lumberworkers. The front of the operating cabin also features a protective cage to prevent rogue logs from smashing through and injuring those behind the wheel. Littermaster 9000. The Littermaster 9000 is a street cleaner's dream. It's intriguing machine is essentially a giant outdoor vacuum cleaner that's powered by a 21 horsepower Vanguard V-twin engine. The Littermaster is described as the perfect solution for rapid vacuum collection and is able to suck up anything in its path, from scattered drink cans and plastic bottles to leaves and broken glass. Designed to keep the streets of your neighborhood in pristine condition, the Littermaster can remove litter in a fraction of the time when compared with manual litter picking crews. Being able to be mounted to a range of vehicles is also a massive advantage. The Littermaster can be placed on a specially fabricated trailer, on the rear end of a pickup truck, or even on the back of a riverbank cleaning boat. With a 400-litre capacity, you won't be changing the bags on this vacuum all too often either. Rubion Strawberry Picking Machine. The Rubion Strawberry Picking Machine does exactly what it says on the tin, and that is to pick one of the world's most favourite fruit, strawberries. Harvesting soft fruit mechanically poses a huge challenge. Each berry needs to be located, assessed for ripeness, harvested, and then boxed with enormous amounts of care to avoid bruising. The fully autonomous Rubion does a fantastic job of cleverly making its way through rows of fruit, picking only the most suitable berries. Rubion's robotic arm, which is mounted upon the self-driving trolley, reaches up from below and grips a ripe berry between its cushioned plastic paws using 3D vision. The gripper then turns the fruit 90 degrees to snap it off its stalk, mimicking the technique of a human picker. In its current form, the Rubion can pick a strawberry every 4 seconds, and with a ripe pick achievement of between 70 and 100%, this machine is certainly rivaling the efficiency of human workers. Case IH Autonomous Concept Tractor. In an effort to increase farm productivity and manpower, agricultural tech leader Case IH has been pointing their attention toward autonomous machines that can operate both remotely and under the supervision of its own AI. Case IH unveiled the world's first high-horsepower cableless autonomous concept tractor at the Farm Progress Show in 2016. 4 years later, and these amazing machines are still not available on the open market. However, their full release could be just around the corner. The autonomous technology works in partnership with programmed routes, added using the designated tablet. The tractor will then follow said routes, carrying out necessary tasks such as ploughing, seeding, and harvesting, while the operator can get on with other pressing jobs. The tractor's advanced obstacle detection enables it to stop and wait for obstacles to clear, or in other cases, it will stop and send the operator a notification requesting further instruction. Autonomous tractor technology is a game changer in the agriculture sector. Such machines allow for round-the-clock operation, increase productivity immensely, and can help to achieve strict deadlines in small weather windows. Rosenbauer Panther. Airport crash tenders are built to be incredibly tough and powerful machines, and the Panther series by Rosenbauer is arguably the best of the best. Offering class-leading acceleration, Panther firefighting vehicles are able to negotiate rough terrain whilst carrying large capacities of firefighting media in record time. All Panthers are fitted with powerful high-capacity pumps, water foam cannons, and are capable of delivering any firefighting media over long distances. Panthers can come in 4x4, 6x6, or even 8x8 wheeled chassis configurations, depending on how much power and capacity is required. For example, the smallest 4x4 Panther, known as the Sprinter, has an engine output of 700 horsepower, a maximum speed of 115 kilometers per hour, and can house up to 6,950 liters of extinguishing fluid. On the other hand, the largest, known as the Top Tier, is an 8x8 wheeled vehicle that's fitted with a 1,450 horsepower engine, has a maximum speed of 135 kilometers per hour, and can hold up to 19,000 liters of extinguishing fluid. SAM 100. SAM, short for Semi-Automated Mason, is a bricklaying robot designed by Construction Robotics, and is the first commercially available bricklaying robot built for on-site masonry. The SAM 100 features a robotic arm that is able to pick up bricks, apply mortar, and then lay each brick in the desired location to build up a wall. SAM is able to lay between 800 to 1,200 bricks a day, which is huge in comparison to the 500 bricks a day laid by the average human mason. This current version of SAM is the result of 8 years in development and costs a staggering $500,000, which is a large sum of money by anybody's standards. However, Construction Robotics does state that the SAM 100 increases masons' productivity by up to 5 times while reducing lifting by over 80%, resulting in a minimum labor saving of 3 years. Established in 2014 and undergoing a rebranding in 2017, Virgin Hyperloop One aims to revolutionize the way we think of transport. The concept is actually built on the dreams of Massachusetts-born physicist, engineer, and inventor Robert Goddard from way back in 1910, but since then we haven't seen anything quite like it. The race is on, with various companies competing to be the first to offer Hyperloop travel, and Virgin may just be the one. But what exactly is it? The concept is based on a futuristic-sounding levitating pod which travels through hundreds of miles of tunnels and tubes, linking cities in minutes at speeds of up to 760 miles per hour. This low-turbulence and entirely autonomous service is designed to be quiet, direct, and on demand. It's a fusion of the three most efficient ways of traveling, combining the directness of a train, the speed of a plane, and the comfort and privacy of your own car, although we're likely to see larger pods with room for up to 28. For many, it seems a far cry from reality, the type of concept that would appear in late 1900s films alongside floating cars and robots. For Virgin Hyperloop One, it is a not-too-distant reality. The company's publicly stated goal is for the system to be in place by 2020 or 2021, and to be rolling out more and more routes globally each year. The idea is to transport a mix of people and cargo, helping to remove the polluting road traffic from our landscapes. Let's take a look back at some of the most important events in the Hyperloop's development. Summer 2016 saw the company open a 100,000 square foot tooling and machine shop in Las Vegas, the epicenter of current Hyperloop activity. This is where parts are created, which are later used at the Vegas-based DevLoop. This developer's loop is made up of a 500-meter course designed to demonstrate the prototype's key features: vacuum, propulsion, its control systems and structures. Pretty much 1 year after the engineer's shop opened, images of the first pod were revealed. This first-generation prototype went on to be used at the DevLoop, helping the company to understand the logistics and dynamics of what they were dreaming to create. Just a few weeks later, the pod, codenamed XP1, completed a 300-meter test run, reaching speeds of up to 192 miles per hour. Autumn rolled in, as did big news for the company. A once-in-a-lifetime investment partnership was born between Hyperloop One and Richard Branson's Virgin Group. The company subsequently renamed to Virgin Hyperloop One as Branson entered the board of directors, becoming chairman. A year and a half later, by early 2019, the company had raised around $400 million as the result of a series of large investors, including French state-owned railway network SNCF. But where are we likely to see this? The summer of 2016 saw Hyperloop One announce a deal with DP World. As the third largest ports operator globally, this would provide them with the opportunity to come up with a cargo offloading system, which is expected to be developed for the company's flagship Jebel Ali port in Dubai. Since then, other feasibility studies have also taken place in the United Arab Emirates. By the end of the following year, Finland, Sweden, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Moscow, and the UK were all being subject to various feasibility studies, suggesting the potential trials of the Hyperloop in these countries too. Estonia was later added to the list, with the Virgin Hyperloop One signing an agreement of intent to help with the Helsinki to Tallinn tunnel, crossing the Gulf of Finland. Further agreements of intent have been struck in India and even various American airports. The first 10 Hyperloops were agreed upon in late 2017, spanning across 5 countries. The winning routes in the States consisted of Chicago to Pittsburgh via Columbus, Dallas to Laredo to Houston, Cheyenne to Denver to Pueblo, and Miami to Orlando. The shortlist of British winners was made up of just 2 routes, Edinburgh to London and Glasgow to Liverpool. This is particularly interesting, with work having already started for the North-South high-speed rail line known as HS2, which aims to connect the capital with other major cities further north. Phase 1 of this may be completed by 2026, with work continuing into the 2030s, allowing plenty of time for Virgin Hyperloop One to obtain a foothold in the British travel market. Canada is in the pipeline for a single route, linking Toronto to Montreal via Ottawa, while Mexico's proposition is to link Mexico City to Guadalajara. Finally, are 2 proposed routes in India, both starting in the city of Chennai. A shorter route runs to Bangalore, while the primary route connects the city with Mumbai. To understand how the Hyperloop works and what causes it to levitate, we need to understand the basic principles of electric motors. Where an electric motor is used in an EV, it comprises 2 key components, a rotor and a stator. Put simply, the rotor rotates while the stator remains stationary. When an electric current passes through one half of the stator, the rotator is made to spin through the power of magnetics. In a car and most other applications, the rotator is disc or donut shaped and is surrounded by the stator. The Virgin Hyperloop One takes a similar mode of creating energy but employs a linear motor which acts as a rail to guide the pod along its journey. Unlike a conventional train, the pod does not need to be in contact with any rail, so sits on a set of wheels. When in motion, the pod levitates through the tube, making physical contact with nothing. It's even claimed that minimal energy is required, and this is because a chain of vacuum pumps removes almost all the air inside the tube. Further benefits include almost utter silence and minimal turbulence. Owing to the fact that it runs entirely off electric power, there are no direct emissions from the pods themselves. The environmental impact comes from the source of this electricity, for example in the use of fossil fuels. The modular and scalable benefits of this type of transport means that power sources can vary. In some parts, the roof of the tube can be covered in solar panels, for example, which is particularly useful for the company's future in places like the UAE. Reaching speeds faster than most aeroplanes, the real benefit for the consumer is the time saved. Take San Francisco to Los Angeles, for example. Both are cities within California, but a drive would mean to spend 6 hours on the road. Flights are quicker, about an hour and a half, but these are expensive and polluting. Virgin Hyperloop One should halve this time again, completing the journey in about 45 minutes. Just recently, Virgin Hyperloop One added to the history books with the first ever trial with people inside. Although some 400 journeys have already been successfully completed at the dev loop, this was the first time any humans had travelled inside a pod. These humans were Chief Technology Officer Josh Giesel and Director of Passenger Experience Sarah Lucian. Branson, watching via a live stream from his own home, was excited and proud to be watching the team begin the next stage of transportation history. This must be slightly frustrating for Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, who envisaged his Hyperloop design back in 2012. His proposition to connect Los Angeles and San Francisco was said to be more efficient, cheaper, safer, and faster than the high-speed rail link. In fact, for cities within 900 miles of one another, Musk sees Hyperloop transport as the perfect solution. Further distance, he says, is best covered by air. Rather than magnetic levitation, Musk's plan is to sit the pods on a series of air skis, making operation more similar to an air hockey puck. However, there's one thing both companies can agree on, and that's the use of a linear electric motor. The LA to San Fran route would come in at a cool $6 billion, according to his estimates. Lead documents on Virgin's part suggest a price tag of $9 to $13 billion, but it's hard to draw a comparison given that both of these developments are in their infancies. Hyperloops connecting cities and communities around the world are far off yet. We expect to see some movement in terms of the first routes towards the end of the decade and into the 2030s. Although this seems a distant future, the reality is that Virgin is working on this today, and it's the most advanced development of Hyperloop transport yet, even ahead of Elon Musk. Do you think we'll be ready for fully autonomous high-speed transport as early as next decade? And more importantly, what does this mean for the future of transport as we know it? What will happen to trains, planes, and even personal cars? 99% of all internet traffic, from this video to your Pokemon Go account to your family WhatsApp group, runs on a hidden network of undersea cables. Why should you care? Because modern life is increasingly dependent on those slinky subaquatic wires. And they get attacked by sharks from time to time. How do they work? What's the future for them? Join us today as we plunge the depths and ask how the internet travels across oceans. According to the authoritative Submarine Cable Map website, there are currently 493 active or actively under construction subsea internet cables crisscrossing the globe. These range from the relatively modest 300-kilometer Azerbaijan to Turkmenistan wire running under the Black Sea, to the absolutely gargantuan 6,600-kilometer Marea cable linking Virginia Beach in the US with Bilbao in northern Spain. Marea weighs the same as 24 blue whales, apparently. The firms laying down this serpentine superhighway, worldwide there's now 1.5 million kilometers of undersea data wires, are cagey about how much it all costs. But professional estimates indicate a typical transoceanic cable should set you back between $300 and $400 million, which seems like a lot because they're not especially thick, typically around the girth of a garden hose, and that includes layers of protective thixotropic jelly around the all-important fiber optic core, plus multiple plastic sheaths and copper wiring to power the thing. But even so, on average they can ferry an awesome 100 gigabytes per second in data, with newer and forthcoming cables able to transmit 400 gigabytes per second. So how does so much data fit down such slim channels? Part of the answer is an extremely sophisticated data wrangling technique known as dense wavelength division multiplexing. Put simply, dense wavelength division multiplexing lets data providers use more than one wavelength of light to convey information fiber optically. Instead, several wavelengths are employed simultaneously and stacked, creating astonishing data speeds. This happens at buzzing, data center-like landing sites at either end of the cable. Are the cables just straightforward long wires? Not quite. Every 70 to 100 kilometers or so along the seabed, cables are punctuated with so-called repeaters. These essentially serve as amplifiers, keeping the signal strength up to par over long distances. That's why the cables incorporate copper conductors, by the way, carrying up to 10,000 volts of DC to power the repeaters. How are the cables laid? They're first coiled into vast cylindrical drums on specialized cable-laying ships. As much of the year's planning and charting will go into plotting the perfect transoceanic route. Bad locations for undersea cables include anywhere volcanic or anywhere especially earthquake or mudslide prone. or anywhere heavily trawled by fishermen. The cable is spooled out the back of the ship at a sedate pace of around 10 kilometers an hour. If the ship encounters bad weather, the captain can decide whether to break off the cord, tie it to a buoy, and retreat to calmer waters. When the storm passes, the ship returns to the buoy and picks up where it left off. Accidents and outages on the cables can and do occur. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy in the US knocked out several key transatlantic cables, disrupting networks for hours. In 2011, the Fukushima earthquake in Japan caused similar online cuts. The vast majority of such disruptions, however, are the result of human carelessness, typically trawler nets or wayward ships' anchors. Cables situated close to the shore are significantly more at risk from such disruption. As such, the nearer to land a cable is, the more likely it'll be carefully armor-plated. Many are even dug into the seabed in long dedicated trenches, carved out using ship-drawn plows. Awesomely, sharks have been spotted nibbling on one of Google's subsea cables. Get your teeth into this 2014 clip. More sinister even than that, the US government has consistently warned of interference in the cables from hostile foreign powers like Russia or China. The US government should know all about that. Whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed in 2013 how the NSA had no qualms eavesdropping on fiber optic communication. The geopolitical implications of undersea cables are also fascinating. Last year, the Australian government intervened to prevent Chinese technology giant Huawei from installing a cable connecting Australia with the Solomon Islands. The fear is that China could use the link to gain access to Australia's sensitive internal networks. So who actually owns these cables? That's an interesting question. It's an expensive business, so historically nations or quasi-national telecom providers have picked up the bill. The world's biggest owner of cables remains America's AT&T, with a stake in some 230,000 kilometers of undersea cables. The second biggest owner is China Telecom. Frequently, cables are owned by groups or consortia of up to 50 separate owners, including tech firms, local government agencies, and other businesses. And while this model helps spread the initial cost, it's less helpful when something goes wrong and nobody can agree who has to put on a wetsuit and do something about it. Increasingly, big tech is recognizing its scope for growth is limited by the undersea cable network. So over the past few years, the overwhelming majority of investment in undersea cable infrastructure has come from companies like Facebook, which currently owns nearly 100,000 kilometers of cable. Google owns roughly the same amount. Amazon has its own massive private network, hooking up the online giant's mighty AWS data centers through cables traversing the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, plus the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea, and the South China Sea. The tech giants like to frame these vast environmentally disruptive infrastructure projects as civilization-enhancing largesse on their part. But they're also shareholder companies, remember, who know perfectly well that increasing the number of human beings online is the only way they can continue to grow. Hang on a second, you're probably thinking, what about Starlink? Isn't our old mate Elon about to make the internet wireless any day? For now, cable is by far the cheapest and most efficient means of yeeting vast packets of data over incredibly long distances fast. Even normally bullish Musk says Starlink is only aimed at people who don't presently enjoy access to high-speed fiber. But who knows how that'll pan out in a decade or two. For now, the future is very much undersea cable. Only this summer, Google and Facebook announced a joint initiative to build an undersea cable named Apricot. Apricot will link up Singapore, Japan, Guam, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Indonesia by the year 2024. The longest subaquatic cable ever, a 45,000-kilometer billion-dollar monster called To Africa that will link up 33 nations, was just bankrolled by a Facebook-led consortium. What do you think? Will mankind's ingenious submarine network one day look as obsolete as the telegraph? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more totally wired tech content. The James Webb Space Telescope is about to revolutionize humanity's comprehension of the cosmos. On its 5-year mission, it'll gather heretofore unimagined insights into the birth of galaxies and offer a realistic shot at finding life on other planets. Or some worry it'll simply fall apart during its insanely complicated deployment. Are our collective minds ready to be blown? Let's hope so. Join us today as we look into the James Webb Space Telescope. Theoretically posited as a successor to the famous Hubble telescope back in 1989, what eventually became known as the James Webb Space Telescope, or Webb after science-mad NASA Administrator James E. Webb, has 4 broad mission goals. To peer across the gulf of space, and therefore back in time, to examine the formation of the very first galaxy. To investigate the birth of stars and planetary systems. To compare early galaxies with their more recent relatives, to test theories about their evolution, distribution, and the role of dark matter. And finally, most excitingly, to assess the chemical makeup of distant planets, including our own solar neighbors, to accurately discern their potential to harbor life. So how is Webb different to Hubble? Hubble had a 7-foot 10-inch mirror. Webb has a 21-foot mirror. Size matters when you're capturing light from distant worlds, just as a bigger bucket will capture more rainwater than a smaller bucket. More important than Webb's size is its operational wavelength. Hubble was designed to capture light in and around the visible spectrum. That helped it generate ravishing images like these, which delighted and inspired a generation of stargazers. But visible light has several limitations. Webb sees in infrared, and as such, it's technically more akin to the lesser-known Spitzer Space Telescope, only 60 times larger. Why infrared? For one, it enables scientists to peer further away and further back in time. The first galaxies formed some 13 billion years ago, and owing to the constant expansion of the universe, the wavelength of the light they produced has been progressively stretched from its original blue and white wavelength into the red spectrum. So if you're not looking in the infrared, you won't be able to see them. More excitingly, red light's long wavelength means it can pass through irritating obstacles like dust. That means Webb will, in effect, see right through these gorgeous but maddeningly opaque dust clouds that baffled Hubble. That alone opens up great unfathomable expanses of sky for astronomers to pore over, again, for the first time ever. So what actually needs to happen on the Webb mission before we get to ogle those pesky hiding galaxies? All being well, in late December, Webb will blast off from the European Space Agency, the ESA's, spaceport in Kourou, French Guiana, on an Ariane 5 rocket. Webb is an international collaboration, by the way, between project leaders NASA, the ESA, and the Canadian Space Agency. Its ultimate destination is the appropriately Gallic-sounding L2 Lagrange point. This interplanetary sweet spot is one of only 5 locations in space where the gravitational pull of our Sun and that of Earth balance the centripetal force spacecraft need to move alongside them. What? Put simply, conditions at the L2 Lagrange point help Webb use gravity to save fuel. But this location is also useful for other reasons. As it moves through space, essentially parallel with the night side of Earth, Webb will always be in range of NASA's Deep Space Communications Array. It'll always have sunlight to power its solar cells, and because it's always moving over the course of a year, it'll eventually have a clear view of the entire sky. Webb has a packed itinerary on its million-mile voyage out to the Lagrange point, unfurling its delicate machinery from Ariane's compact fairing like a high-tech butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. In total, some 178 release mechanisms all need to work perfectly. No wonder there's thousands of anxious space nerds nervously awaiting this particular launch. Anyway, half an hour after blastoff, the first solar panels will deploy. After 2 hours, the communications antennae will unfurl. 10 hours after that, the first of 3 course correction maneuvers will occur. Remember, everything has to work just so. Within a day and a half, Webb will have soared past the moon's orbit. A day after that, the sun shield will commence its steady, painstaking deployment. Less eye-catching, maybe, than those giant gold mirrors up top, Webb's sun shield is nevertheless a critical piece of kit. About the size of a tennis court, the 5-layer shield is designed to keep the actual telescope as cold and dark as can be. This is essential when you're working in infrared, as any interference would be catastrophic for the mission. The sun shield's kite-shaped structure comprises 5 shiny gossamer thin layers. The 0.05mm thick outer layer is expected to absorb temperatures of around 260 degrees Fahrenheit, while the 4 other layers, each around half that thickness, progressively reduce heat transfer to the point the telescope gear itself maintains working temperatures as low as minus 447 degrees Fahrenheit. The membranes themselves are made from heat-resistant Kapton and coated with a 100 nanometer film of aluminium and a 50 nanometer film of silicon, doped in order to be electrically conductive. Just unfolding and tensioning this heat shield, which occupies much of Webb's first week on the road, involves 70 hinge assemblies, 400 pulleys, 1,312 feet of cable, and 8 deployment motors. And if any of that fails, the $10 billion mission may as well abort straight away. No pressure. Week 2 of Webb's Galactic Odyssey focuses on the telescope itself. Around day 10, a 25-foot tripod will extend, incorporating Webb's secondary mirror, which captures light from the primary mirror and directs it to the tertiary mirror, and thence to its scientific instrument. An additional radiator will also emerge for that all-important heat reduction. Over the following days, all 18 hexagonal primary mirror segments will slowly unfurl, with their finely calibrated hinge mechanisms and 132 actuators designed to help the mirror attain its perfect final form. The mirrors are made from beryllium, chosen because beryllium is light, strong, and robust at holding its shape across a vast range of temperatures. Each hexagon is coated with a layer of gold just 700 atoms thick. Why gold? It's the optimal material for infrared astronomy, apparently. And a smart flex on behalf of humanity if we bump into any especially bougie aliens. A month after its launch, Webb's final course correction will put it into a halo orbit around the Lagrange point. This is when the cooling begins in earnest. Project leaders reckon a week will be needed before the NIRCam, or near-infrared camera, which calibrates and irons out any imperfections in the mirror alignment, is cool enough to function properly. 3 weeks after that, the shady portion behind Webb's sunshield will cool down to the necessary minus 380 degrees Fahrenheit, or 40 Kelvin, for work to begin. One of several design innovations Webb employs to lower its temperature is its distinctive open structure, as opposed to the familiar self-contained tubular format of Hubble and the telescope in your attic. Still, even that isn't cold enough for the MIRI, or mid-infrared instrument. It needs a dedicated cryocooler to chill it still further, down to a refreshing minus 447 degrees Fahrenheit, or just 7 Kelvin. That takes 100 days, by the way, around the same time needed to perfectly align those gold mirrors. After a few more days calibrating its onboard instruments, Webb will be good to go. What will the instruments be doing? 2 things broadly: taking photos and capturing spectra. What are spectra? Spectra is the plural of spectrum. Webb is equipped with 11 distinct modes of spectrograph. These employ a mixture of clever filters, smart detectors, and fine microshutter arrays to break down light from distant objects into their component colors. Why? To enable scientists, for the first time, to directly observe the chemical makeup of countless distant worlds. That's a huge deal, because the presence of certain elements, say methane, might indicate the presence of alien life. All being well, Webb will be relaying images back to our spellbound species by summer 2022. We'll get to see further away and further back in time than humans have ever managed before, and that in itself should lead to some striking discovery. Everything hinges on that delicately choreographed launch and deployment sequence, though. Some mind-bending engineering has gone into its planning. For instance, we all know most materials shrink at ultra-cold temperatures. So Webb's designers have built many of its components precisely wrong, so they shrink to the perfect size and dimensions in situ. Why is that so nerve-wracking? As NASA Mission Systems engineer Mike Menzel puts it, when you're a million miles away from Earth, you can't send someone to fix it. What do you think? Are we on the cusp of a new era of discovery? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more web-slinging tech content. Working hundreds of meters above water with components longer than an A380 wingspan and heavier than a steam engine, engineers building the latest generation of wind turbines routinely overcome head-spinning obstacles. Is it really wobbly up there? Do some turbines actually float? Join us today as we fanboy out and discover how wind turbines are assembled. The first ever offshore wind farm, Vindeby in Denmark, came on stream just 30 years ago. It was, you might say, revolutionary. Since then, this utopian technology has gone from strength to strength, with taller turbines and ever more extensive wind farms. Some turbines, of course, are land-based, others are all at sea. Today, we'll try and consider both, starting at the bottom and working up. Onshore turbines typically sit on great concrete foundations. These foundations can take many forms, depending on the nature of the site. For instance, this so-called shallow mat extension, which is essentially a gigantic disc of reinforced concrete. It's not terribly environmentally friendly and needs a lot of excavating, but it's strong and versatile. Alternatively, a ribbed beam foundation format is more structurally elegant, uses fewer materials, but is more complex and therefore tricky to pull off. Another foundation technique, uplift anchors, incorporate pre-stressed metal hooks that rely on the strength of surrounding rocks to prop up the mighty turbine. But of course, this is only useful in certain geological contexts. On sites where soil stiffness is an issue, long metal geopiers, perhaps 100 per turbine, burrow deep into the earth. Fundamentally, the job of the base is to overcome what engineers call the overturning moment. This is a fancy way of saying they stop it from toppling over. Offshore turbines come in 2 flavors: floating and rooted. Floating turbines, usually in either the spar-buoy or semi-submersible varieties, literally sit on floating bases. These are boats models, which are anchored to the seabed using long, sturdy steel ropes. Floating turbines aren't perfect, but they cause less disruption to marine ecosystems than their rooted alternative, which currently involves drilling gigantic 80-meter, 1,000-ton steel cylinders called monopiles deep into the seabed. This process, employing gigantic hydraulic hammers, has been recorded making a 210 decibel racket underwater, causing great distress to local seals and porpoises. Getting these monopiles out to sea at all requires a veritable armada of boats, from humble tugs to almighty dedicated sea jacking, which raise themselves clean out of the water to provide a stable working platform. Once the monopile, a colossal steel rod in effect, is rooted in the seabed, a transitional piece is affixed to the top. This transitional piece is in itself up to 30 meters long and is typically brightly colored to make the attached boat mooring stage visible in bad weather. One very important job of the transitional piece, after being mated to the monopile and stuffed with cement grout, is to level out the tip of the monopile in order to help the turbine stand upright. Once the base is in place, on land or sea, it's time to assemble the turbine tower. Manufactured from great sheets of steel that are curled into cylinders up to 8 meters in diameter and seam welded at the factory, tower sections arrive on site in sections to be stacked up. The tower is too big to be moved in one piece, either for ships at sea or conventional trucks, so modular on-site assembly of prefabbed elements is clearly the way to go. Framed into position and stacked one by one, the tower elevates the turbine fan up above the aerodynamic sweet spot of 30 meters above ground, where winds are usually less turbulent and more desirable from an energy harvesting standpoint. The tricky part here is aligning the different tower sections as they rise, with huge components in windy locations up against engineering tolerances of just a few millimeters. Atop the shaft sits the brains of the operation, also known as the nacelle. Crammed with upwards of 1,500 bespoke components, the nacelle houses the generator and drivetrain, inverters, sometimes a gearbox, as well as assorted monitoring, communications, and environmental maintenance gear. It's affixed to the tower via a sophisticated rotational yaw system, which allows the nacelle, and by extension the turbine blades, to turn and face the wind whenever it changes. The nacelle itself can be incredibly heavy, with one recent IEA offshore 15 megawatt model weighing in at over 800 tons. How on earth is that installed? With great difficulty. Mighty cranes, lift wires, and supporting tugger lines are part of the process. At sea, the impact of the wind on the dangling nacelle is surprisingly less of an issue than the oscillations of the tower itself, as it's battered by waves and currents below. Careful mathematical modeling is carried out before every installation, supported by clever civil engineering gadgets called tuned mass dampers, which go some way to help align vibrations between these two massive components before mating. Of course, much of the nacelle is prefabbed before being shipped to site. Construction bosses need to make tough choices over what's efficient to make on site, against weight considerations and even simple limits on available deck space. Once in place and covered up with a weatherproof fiberglass gondola, the blades can now be attached to the hub. Engineers have come to favour a 3-blade turbine form. Even numbers of blades cause problems with resonance, which lead to unseemly wobbles that in turn cause expensive and frustrating wear and tear. In theory, 1 blade works just fine, or 9 blades, although they suffer from exciting sounding vortex issues. Fundamentally, engineers are pragmatists and want an economical, scalable solution. For now at least, that's 3 blades. These blades, which nowadays can stretch over 100 meters long and be 4 meters around at the root, were once made of aluminium, but at current scales that's far too heavy, so fiberglass is now preferred. And in case you were thinking the job of winching up a 100-meter long, 55-ton fiberglass blade, a blade that's literally designed to catch the wind 150 meters in the air at sea, is easy, well, it's not easy. Each blade root is encircled by guide pins that marry up with flange holes in the hub. How do engineers compensate for the wobbly tower and motion-prone blade? Those passive-tuned mass dampers we mentioned earlier play something of a role. But in recent years, engineers have dreamed up 2 new techniques, both of which sound a bit like cheesy anime villains. Blade Dragon is a lifting yoke that attaches to the crane and holds the blade more firmly than a regular hook. The advantage here is it can be affixed to the hub at an assortment of inclined angles. Boomlock is a smart system that sets out to eliminate, or at least compensate for, any lateral movement on the crane hook, so the blade stays steadier. These techniques make great economic sense, as they work at relatively high ambient wind speeds using fewer human operators, ultimately getting the installation done quicker and therefore cheaper. Indeed, modern wind farms can erect the tower, install the nacelle and the blades in a day, with just a little extra time for calibration of the blade's pitch angle and optimal yaw before connecting to the grid. As turbines get taller and more ambitious, construction obviously gets trickier. There's a limit to how tall a crane can usefully be, especially at sea, but some companies in the field, like Mamoet, have developed bold new solutions, spin-off technologies. Take this WTA, or wind turbine assembly crane. Instead of being rooted to the ground or on a jacked-up boat, the WTA 250 uses temporary guide rails attached to the turbine tower itself. Capable of lifting a hefty 250 metric tons, it's superior because it has no footprint and can theoretically rise as high as the tower itself. Minimizing the role of humans in what is often a perilous working environment is another priority as the turbine construction field matures. Already, ultra-sophisticated mathematical models guide design and development of turbines and wind farms. And there's an increasing role for AI and software engineers to play in conceptualizing the next generation of taller, cheaper, and more efficient turbines. So the rewards are massive for any young nerds out there who wish to study the blade. What do you think? Are modern wind turbines ugly blots on the natural landscape, or inspiring monuments to human ingenuity and progress? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more high-rolling tech.